Hello guys, Leech here. So this video will be a showcase for Primal Strike and Spearfield. The Primal Strike will be the main skill that we're going to use for single target and clearing. The Spearfield will be an addition to the single target. But we're going to talk about Spearfield in a bit. Let's talk about the Primal Strike first. The Primal Strike is always a good single target skill, but it also can be a good clearing skill if you can consistently trigger the Spirit. Especially the Spirit from the last strike have a really huge AoE. It's pretty much the whole screen, so if we can trigger that consistently, it will have a very good clear. And to trigger the Spirit, you will need the enemy to be shocked. Now, you can use something like Thunder's Leap. With Shocking Leap, it's going to create the shock ground, but you're not going to use Thunder's Leap throughout the maps because that will be too slow, so you need something like kind of quote-unquote passive. And the other way to do it is using a Boot's Wake of Destruction, if I remember the name correctly. But it's a boot slot, and boot slot is a premium slot on PoE2. You're going to lose a lot of movement speed. So the other way to do it is using Running Wraps. This tag coming from Aste, so shout out to him, and I will leave a link in the descriptions to his channel if you guys want to check him out. So the basic idea is to trigger Lightning Wrap with cast on crit or cast on ailment. But Lightning Wraps will require a target that have a cooling strike range, meaning the target need to have a really low life. And the way we're going to achieve that is using Herald of Ice. Now for the Herald of Ice, you will need a decent amount of cold damage, because you need to freeze the enemy and you need to shatter them to trigger the Herald of Ice. But if you can trigger the Herald of Ice, it will do the AoE. And if you support the Herald of Ice with Piety Mercy, now the Herald of Ice cannot kill the enemy, so it will leave the enemy with basically 1 HP. And that's basically providing the target for the Lightning Rods. So this way we're going to have a lot of shock ground, and that's going to make the Primal Strike consistently trigger a Spirit. Now for the Spearfield, so Spearfield is a skill that spawns bunch of spear on the ground, and if an enemy touches the spear, it will explode. Now you can stack up to 70 maximum spear, and it's also able to shotgun. So it's a really good skill for single target. However, for the Spearfield, it have a downside where the first one, you need times to prep the spear, and the second one, if the spear trigger within 0.5 seconds after you create the spear, it will deal 80% less DPS. So you're not going to be able to use it all the time. You're pretty much only able to use it on the early fight. But I include this one on the build because it's a very good addition for single target. Like in the Breach boss or like Citadel boss, you can easily take like half chunk of the HP. And I do not even put a specific setup for the Spearfield. It's just something that I put in, and I just put a bunch of damaging support gem in it. And for the rest of the setup, I'm still using the same setup as my Amazon on my last video, exile in stacking. We're still using Trinity, and there's a few changes of course, because now we are using Primal Strike primary, so there will be a few adjustments, but the basic idea is still more or less the same. And with that said, let's go through the setup. The first one is the gem. So the first one is Spearfield. We only care about DPS. So pinpoint critical to make sure that we have a crit, close combat, elemental armament, consecrated area, and rage 3. Now for the Kong area, Spearfield is still relatively new, I think. As far as I research on the skill, we do not find like a specific AoE that you need, because with a skill like this, usually you will need a specific setup to make it optimized, but because I'm only using it just for additional damage, I just put in concentrated areas so I get more damage. That's basically about it. And for the Primal Strike, I'm going to use pinpoint critical, close combat, elemental armament 2, Rakiata flow, and rage 3. So the next one is Thunder's Leap. This will still be an opener that you're going to use to create a shock ground with a Shocking Leap, and persistent ground to make the shock ground last a little bit longer. Pinpoint critical because you definitely want as close to 100% critical with the Thunder's Leap, because the only way you can create a shock round if you critical. And prolonged duration to increase the duration of the shock, and blind to blind the enemy. And the next is Blood Hunt. This skill you can basically change it to any skill. The only reason I have this one here is just to trigger the weapon set 1. So a bit of the setup, Spearfield will be set on weapon set 2. Because I'm only going to use Spearfield on single target, and weapon set 2 is for single target, and weapon set 1 is for click maps. So the Blood Hunt will be on weapon set 1. And for the rest of the skill, you want to check both of the weapon set, because we're basically using the same skill either for single target or clearing skill. But this setup is really not necessary. I just like to put here because I can just press this, I have a weapon set 1, I press this, I have weapon set 2. I think it's easier to organize it that way. So the next one is Herald of Ice. I'm supporting with AoE. and elemental armaments and shock conductions. This one is kind of experimental, but if you see on the tab, my Herald of Ice have a 1 to 12% chance to shock, so it's a pretty good chance it's going to shock because it does have a lot of lightning damage. And the lightning damage basically coming from this. This gives us a lot of flat lightning based on how many intelligence we have. So, and this is the reason why I'm not really bothered with like a flat damage to attack on my ring. And the next one is blind to blind the enemy, and the last one is piety mercy. And this is really important because you do not want the Herald of Ice to kill the target. And the next one is cast on crit. This is going to trigger the lightning rubs and also the unearthed. And the unearthed basically just for the Trinity. If I look at the tab, my unearthed have a very close fire and cold damage. So the unearthed is going to give us the fire resonance and cold resonance. So pay attention to how many fire and cold damage you do on your unearthed. And the way you're going to get the fire and cold damage is by something like this. With the second flame, we get like damage as extra fire, and we also get damage as extra cold from this one, and also Heart of Well. So you want to have like around the same extra cold and extra fire in order for your unearthed to basically deal the same amount of fire and cold damage, and that way you will switch between cold fire and cold. And lightning rubs, this is how we're going to create the shock grounds, and encroaching ground, this is going to make the shock ground gradually become bigger, and bonus energy to proc the skill more often, and then the magnify area to increase the AoE both of the unearthed but also the shock ground from running runs. So the next one will be Wind Dancer. This is pretty standard. Blind 2, main, knockback, and life leech. And the next one is Trinity, and if possible try to get level 23, because level 23 you get 7% more elemental. If I take off this, now it goes down to 6% more elemental damage. Now 6% more elemental damage means you're going to get like 60% at the maximum resonance, which is practically impossible to hit. You get something like 54%. I think that's like the practical maximum. But when you put in here and you can reach but if you can reach a level 23, that 7% now becomes 70% if you have the maximum resonance, or I think it's around 63% the practical maximum. So try to hit level 23 because this is quite a lot of DPS. And the last one is Ghost Dance. This is going to give us back energy shield if we get hit. And I'm using compressed duration to reduce the duration between the ghost route, so we get the ghost route more often. And for the weapons, I'm still using Hand of Wisdom. This is the way we're going to get a lot of flat. And because we stack a lot of intelligence, this node also going to give us the percentage. So in terms of DPS, we're kind of good with this setup. And you can also use another setup, which is Viper Pit, basically the surrounded tag. You can have probably bigger DPS, but you need to figure out how you can get your evasions, because in this setup, we get a lot of evasion from the Stalking Panther. And the evasion is mainly coming from the helmet. So let's say, so right now I have like 25k evasions. If I take off my helmets, I pretty much only have 10k. So the helmet is a really big evasions contributor. You need to figure out how you're going to get the evasions, because that is the main defensive layer. And for the body armor, I'm using Feather Raiment. You probably don't have to. I think it's better to just use Fire Robes, because that's going to give you more energy shield. And for the boots, it's just a movement speed boots. This gives you a lot of movement speed. And for the rings, just a lot of intelligence, a lot of attribute, a lot of cold resistance, because I need the cold resistance, and prefix just flat and life. Evasion doesn't really need it. I don't really feel like you need evasion here. Ideally, you probably want 2 flat and 1 maximum life. And for the amulet, this is my amulet right now. Plus 3 melee skill, percentage intelligence, and for the prefix, the increased energy from equipped armor is really, really strong, especially if you use Fire Robes. And for the belt, Headhunter, I just don't find any other belt that can replace this one. And for the weapons, you can use Tangled Tongue. Like in my last video, I'm using Tangled Tongue for the Amazon. But you can also use this one. This one I get pretty lucky. This spear is basically almost perfect if I can annul off that cold damage. But it's a very scary annul. I don't know if I'm going to do that. And for the socket, I'm using a leech, because you will need one source of mana leech, because Primal Strike does cost you a lot of mana. And the only way I can find mana leech is on my weapon, because any other way I usually already have a slot on it. And with combination with this node, Walker of the Wilds, the mana leech will recover based on elemental damage, which is basically the main damage that we did. And that way we don't have to worry about mana. And as for the weapon set 1 and 2, if you see over here, the green one is weapon set 2, and the red one will be weapon set 1. So the weapon set 1 is basically I'm taking this node. This is going to give +2 melee strike range. It's not necessary, but it feels a lot better to play it on maps with this node. And the other node that I'm taking is this AoE node over here. This is going to increase the AoE of the Herald of Ice and also the Primal Strike. So I think that's all about the setup, and I think this probably will be my last video for PoE 2 for now, because at the end of this month, we're going to have announcement for the PoE 1. So I'm going to have to prep for PoE 1, but depending on how PoE 1 go, I probably will come back to PoE 2 again and we try some other things. But for now, this is all I have for you. And if you like the video, consider to like and subscribe. That will help the channel a lot. So thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next one.